In suburban Wilmington, Delaware, a soft-spoken nutritionist was about to confront years of dismissal. What started as a quiet family dinner took a shocking turn when her loved ones praised a $50,000 wellness plan, identical to the advice they once ignored. Lena Whitaker wasn't your typical wellness coach. For a decade, she built her life around holistic healing, known for compassion and unshakable insight. When she saw her own protocols repackaged by a celebrity expert, she realized she was walking into betrayal. Her calm response triggered a transformation. The Whitakers and their community would never be the same after Lena reclaimed her voice. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The Whitaker home smelled like rosemary chicken and old pride. Lena stepped over the threshold, arms full of Tupperware and herbal tea tins. Marla took them wordlessly, her lips stretching into a polite smile that never quite reached her eyes. "You didn't need to bring anything, sweetie. We've got plenty," her mother said, voice light but dismissive. She placed the container of turmeric ginger broth on the counter like it might bite her. "I know," Lena replied evenly, "but I thought it might help your joints." "You've been limping more lately," Marla waved her off. "It's just the weather." From the living room, Gerald's voice rang out. "If you'd get that joint looked at by an actual doctor instead of trying to drink leaves, maybe it wouldn't hurt." Lena swallowed the sigh rising in her chest. Her fingers twitched with the instinct to pack everything back up and walk out. Instead, she reached for plates, grounding herself in routine. At the dining table, Eric had already helped himself to a soda and was halfway through a protein bar with a brand Lena knew had been recalled 2 months ago for synthetic contamination. He saw her glance at the wrapper. "What?" he said, smirking. "Didn't run it by your wellness coven first?" Naomi sat quietly beside him, her head bent over a sketch pad. She looked up and gave Lena a soft smile. Lena smiled back, grateful for the small lifeline. Dinner unfolded with the same familiar choreography. Gerald carved the meat with surgical precision. Marla asked questions that weren't really questions. Eric dominated the conversation with work anecdotes heavy on brand, names, and performance metrics. Naomi ate slowly, methodically, eyes shifting between her family like she was translating a foreign language. Lena waited until the second glass of wine was poured before she spoke. "I brought something for you all," she said gently. "It's a wellness plan, just a basic start. Personalized. You've all mentioned energy dips, joint issues, sleep, trouble." Gerald didn't look up. "We're fine." "You're not," Lena said, more carefully now. "Dad, you've had high blood pressure for years. Eric, that caffeine load is dangerous. And Mom, your inflammation markers are probably linked to—" "You're not a doctor," Gerald snapped. "And we've got plenty of those. Real ones." The room fell into a heavy hush. Marla reached for her wine glass again. Eric let out a dry laugh. "Right, because turmeric smoothies are the cure to systemic disease." "It's not about smoothies," Lena said, a tremor slipping into her voice. "It's about patterns, stress, diet. You're all spiraling in ways that are preventable." Gerald finally looked up. His stare was flat. "We didn't ask for a lecture, Lena." Naomi's small voice broke the silence. "What's inflammation?" Everyone turned to her. Lena's heart softened. "It's when your body is trying to fight something, but sometimes it gets confused and starts hurting itself instead, like when you're sad but pretend you're fine, and the feelings have nowhere to go." Naomi nodded, chewing thoughtfully. Marla looked like she might speak, but then her gaze darted to Gerald's, and whatever she had almost said dissolved behind a tight-lipped smile. Lena put her fork down. "I think I'm going to head out." "Don't be dramatic," Eric muttered. "I'm not," she said, rising. "I'm just tired. and I think maybe I need a break from offering help no one wants." Naomi looked up sharply. "Will you come to my science fair next week?" "I wouldn't miss it," Lena said, touching her shoulder briefly. She didn't say goodbye to her father. The door closed behind her with the soft finality of someone walking, away not just from a dinner, but from years of muted dismissal. Outside, the crisp Delaware night wrapped around her. In the quiet hum of her car, Lena sat for a long moment before turning the key. Her breath fogged the windshield. Her fingers curled around the steering wheel like it was the only thing still, tethering her to herself. She had walked into that house with care, with knowledge, with love disguised as spreadsheets and supplement kits. She had walked out alone, again. The next morning, she sat across from Trevor at his tiny office cafe, nursing a cup of nettle tea. He looked at her the way only someone who had known her since college could. No judgment, just the weight of too much understanding. "They're never going to listen, Trev," she said quietly. "I could hand them their own lab results and they'd still ask for a second opinion." Trevor leaned back, arms folded. "Then stop trying to convince them." Lena blinked. "What's the alternative?" "Document it, not for them, for you. Archive the plan you made, all the research, all the protocols. So when they come crawling back, because they will, you won't just say, 'I told you so.' You'll say, 'I built this long before you believed in it.'" Lena looked out the window. Cars passed. A mother walked her child to school, their hands swinging in rhythm. "Or maybe," she said softly, "I just walk away." "You could," Trevor said. "But you won't. You're not built that way." She didn't respond. But deep inside, beneath the exhaustion, the disappointment, the years of being unheard, there was still a flicker of fire, a whisper of herself that said, "Keep the receipts." The air in Trevor's office still smelled faintly of eucalyptus and cinnamon from the morning's diffuser cycle, but Lena barely noticed. She was already elbows deep in her laptop, her fingers a blur over the keys as she compiled protocol after protocol, anti-inflammatory meal plans, sleep hygiene recommendations, stress reduction strategies backed by peer-reviewed journals, each one tailored to her family's known medical histories. Trevor sipped coffee beside her, watching over the rim of his mug. "You're in it," he said. Lena didn't look up. "If I'm going to be ignored, I want to be ignored professionally." "Tell me again why you're doing this," he teased, nudging her lightly with his elbow. She finally paused, looking over at him with a tired smile. "Because I need to know I wasn't wrong. Even if they never admit it, I want proof, for myself, that I gave them something good. Something they didn't want until it was too late." Trevor leaned forward. "Then frame it that way. This isn't about them anymore." She closed her laptop. It never really was. That weekend, while Lena wrestled with PDFs and cross-referenced clinical studies, Marla and Gerald attended an exclusive wellness seminar hosted in the glass atrium of the Wilmington Country Club. Marla wore her favorite silk scarf and pearl earrings. Gerald adjusted his tie 4 times in the rearview mirror before they stepped inside. They were greeted by greeters in branded white polos and escorted to their reserved seats near the front. Everything smelled of lavender and lemon water. The fee. Lights dimmed. A stage technician flicked on a soft amber glow across the podium. And then she walked out. Dr. Simone Cross. Tall, statuesque, dressed in clinical whites with stylish accents. A headset mic curved around her cheekbone as she began to speak in smooth, confident tones. "I'm here today," Simone said. "Not to sell you magic. I'm here to offer you evidence, systems, tools that work with your body, not against it." Gerald leaned forward slightly. "Finally, someone serious." Marla nodded, eyes shining. "She's so professional." The slide deck behind Simone displayed charts, graphics, keywords, gut-brain axis, hormonal recalibration, neuroadaptogenic healing protocols, Marla took notes. Gerald took pictures. Neither of them noticed that nearly every slide mirrored phrases Lena had used over the past 2 years, only dressed in polished fonts and pastel graphics. Lena didn't find out about the seminar until Naomi mentioned it at dinner 2 nights later. They sat in Lena's kitchen, Naomi cross-legged at the fiasco table, munching dried mango. Lena was peeling carrots for soup. Mom and Grandpa saw a doctor lady this weekend, Naomi said between bites. She had a headset and a slideshow and a diagram of poop. Lena chuckled. Classy. Naomi tilted her head. I think she was kinda saying the same stuff as you, but fancier. Grandpa called it real science. Lena's knife stopped mid-carrot. What was her name? I think Dr. Simone? Lena stared at the counter for a long moment. Dr. Simone Cross? Yeah, that's it. A memory bubbled up unbidden, Simone's laughter echoing across the lab back at Johns Hopkins, the two of them debating the role of prebiotics in cortisol regulation over lukewarm cafeteria coffee. Simone had always been the polished one, the one who knew how to sell science without seeming like she was selling it. Lena had been the thinker, the one scribbling notes in the margins, too focused on precision to polish the message. You okay? Naomi asked. Yeah, Lena lied. Just didn't expect that name to come up. By Tuesday, Simone was trending in local wellness circles. Gerald forwarded a link to Marla from his iPad titled Delaware's Top 5 Longevity Specialists, with Simone listed first. Marla sent it to Eric. Eric forwarded it to Naomi with the caption, Your grandpa's new girl crush. Nobody sent it to Lena. On Wednesday morning, Lena drove to her clinic early. She needed air, space. As she unlocked the front door, Trevor looked up from behind the front desk, raising an eyebrow. You look like someone just stole your lunch money. Lena dropped her bag and slumped into the waiting room chair. Simone Cross. Trevor's mouth formed a perfect O. The Simone? She's in Delaware, hosting seminars. My parents were there. They loved her. Trevor whistled low. Ouch. And Naomi said the stuff Simone said sounded just like what I've been saying. For years. Trevor leaned back, arms crossed. You think she stole it? Lena shook her head. No, not exactly. We used to work together. We studied the same journals, swapped notes. I was the purist. She was the one who saw how to market it. And now she's got charts and TED Talks and a 6-figure consultancy package. You've got truth, he said. Yeah, Lena said, voice flat. And a practice that can barely pay rent. There was a pause. Then Trevor smiled. Well, maybe it's time to stop being quiet about it. The next evening, Lena sent an email to her family. Not angry, not even frustrated, just tired. Included were 5 attachments, a personalized inflammation reduction guide for Marla, a hypertension support protocol for Gerald A., caffeine detox and liver support plan for Eric A., children's wellness starter sheet for Naomi, and a brief cover. Letter simply titled, If You Ever Decide to Listen. She didn't expect a reply. She didn't get one. But she had the timestamp, the archive, the receipts. That Friday, Naomi returned from school with a flyer folded into her backpack. Grandma wants you to look at this, she said, handing it to Lena. It was a sleek trifold brochure, Optimal UTM with Dr. Simone Cross, Personalized Wellness Starts Here. Beneath it, now accepting private clients. Entry package, $50,000. Lena stared at the number. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Naomi watched her closely. Is that a lot? Lena nodded. It's a lot. Naomi hesitated. Is she better than you? The question was honest, innocent, and it hit harder than any insult Eric had ever thrown. I don't think she's better, Lena said. I think she's louder. And sometimes people mistake volume for truth. Naomi nodded slowly. You're not loud. No, Lena agreed, but I'm not wrong either. Later that night, Lena sat at her dining table with her laptop open. The cursor blinked. At the top of a blank document. Project Archive, Whitaker Family Wellness Protocol, she typed. She wrote it all down. Every warning, every suggestion, every metric she'd tracked for them. Every carefully curated plan, denied and ignored. She wrote not with rage, but with precision, with clarity. If they ever decided to come back, if they ever came looking for help again, she would not have to argue. She would not have to beg. She would simply point. Meanwhile, in the Whitaker house, Gerald scrolled Simone's website on his tablet. Real credentials, he muttered. Harvard, Yale, Johns Hopkins. Marla peeked over his shoulder. She said her team works with Olympic athletes. Gerald nodded, impressed. Maybe it's time we invested in something serious. Lena did offer to help, you know, Marla said quietly. Gerald didn't look up. And I appreciate it. But let's be honest, she's too emotionally involved. This needs to be clinical. Marla said nothing. Because what she might have said was, she offered you this for free. You ignored her. And now you're thinking about spending $50,000 on the same thing, just because the woman wears heels and speaks at conferences. But Marla had been keeping quiet for decades. Old habits like inflammation die slow. Back in her apartment, Lena uploaded her archive to a private cloud folder and labeled it, What I Gave Before They Were Ready. She stared at the title for a long while. Trevor had been right. This wasn't for them. It was for her. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead in the ER hallway, low and rhythmic like a warning tone. Lena stood against the pale green wall, arms crossed, watching through the glass as doctors clustered around Eric's gurney. A nurse wheeled in a portable EKG machine. Monitors beeped in discordant sync. Lena's phone vibrated in her pocket. For the third time. Trevor's name. She let it go to voicemail. She hadn't expected to be here. Not really. When the call came from Marla, panicked, breathless, half swallowed in tears, Lena had almost said, No. Let them call Simone. But she didn't. She got in the car and drove through a thunderstorm. Now she was here, again. In the margins of a crisis, watching her family fall apart under the weight of their own denial. Eric had collapsed during a corporate retreat at a hotel in Rehoboth. Chest pains, shortness of breath, blurred vision. He'd initially blamed the heat, then dehydration. By the time the EMTs arrived, he was slumped on the floor, fingers numb, heart rate through the roof. The doctors were ruling out a cardiac event, but were already talking about acute hypertension and liver stress, likely lifestyle-induced, one murmured. The door behind Lena opened. Gerald entered, tie loosened, skin pale and drawn beneath his tan. Where's the doctor? He asked her, voice brittle. They're still evaluating, Lena said. Vitals are stabilizing. He nodded, not meeting her eyes. You didn't have to come. I know, she replied. Gerald sank into a chair across from her, elbows on his knees. He's 38. Lena said nothing. Marla arrived next, wrapped in a too-thin cardigan, eyes already red. She didn't say hello, just walked straight past Lena and into the observation room, placing a trembling hand on the edge of Eric's bed. He doesn't look good, she whispered to no one in particular. He's lucky, Lena said. This could have been much worse. Gerald stood again, pacing now. The doctor said his liver's showing signs of strain, from caffeine. Supplements, energy drinks. He's been pushing himself too hard. Marla looked over. You said this could happen. Lena blinked. It wasn't an admission, but it wasn't nothing. Yes, Lena said quietly. I did. Gerald glanced at her. Maybe you were onto something. The words felt like cracked porcelain, carefully placed but breakable. Not quite an apology. Not yet. By the next afternoon, Eric was discharged under observation. He was groggy, irritated, and immediately reached for his phone. Don't even think about emailing the team, Lena said, sitting beside him in the passenger seat of Gerald's car. They'll want an update. You collapsed. Take the weekend, Eric groaned. Don't act like you care. Lena's jaw tightened. Don't pretend I don't. Marla in the back seat reached forward. Sweetheart, maybe just rest for now. Eric turned toward the window. If you start pushing turmeric shots on me, I swear to God. I didn't bring anything, Lena said, voice flat. Eric snorted. Miracle of the year. They drove in silence. Naomi came to stay with Lena that weekend, while Marla and Gerald hovered anxiously over Eric. She brought her school books, a sleepover bag, and her usual quiet attentiveness. On Saturday morning, they made a smoothie together: spinach, banana, almond milk, flaxseed. Naomi read the ingredients off a list Lena had taped to the fridge. You think my dad's really sick? Naomi asked, curled up on the couch with her smoothie in hand. Lena sat beside her. I think his body's been trying to tell him something for a long time, and he didn't listen. Naomi looked down at the glass. Like you? Lena smiled faintly. Exactly. They sat for a moment in the soft light of late morning. Will you help me make a journal? Naomi asked suddenly. Like a health journal with colors and stuff? So I can track how I feel after I eat certain things? Lena felt something shift in her chest, something quiet and breaking open, like a crocus after frost. Yes, she said. I'd love that. Meanwhile, back at the Whitaker house, Marla stood in the kitchen staring at Lena's old email. She'd reopened it after a week of ignoring it. The attachments stared back like unopened gifts. She clicked on her file, Anti-Inflammatory Protocol, Marla Whitaker, and began to read. Turmeric, omega-3s, sleep tracking, gentle yoga, stress, identification. She felt her throat tighten. Lena had written, You deserve to feel better. You deserve a body that doesn't feel like it's always at war with you. It was the only line that made her cry. Gerald found her in the study. An hour later, flipping through Lena's plans. She had all this? He asked. Marla nodded. For years. And we just dismissed it. Marla looked at him. We dismissed her. Gerald rubbed his eyes. Simone's team called back. Said she's available for an intensive home consultation. Marla hesitated. How much? 50,000. A pause. She already did the work, Marla said softly. And she offered it for free. Gerald didn't answer, just looked down at the papers. Later that evening, in Lena's apartment, Naomi lay sprawled on the rug, scribbling in a journal. She'd titled the front page, My Body is Smart. Lena was watching her when her phone buzzed, a number she didn't recognize. She answered. Lena Whitaker? Yes. This is Amanda. I'm Dr. Simone Cross's assistant. She asked me to reach out regarding a potential collaboration. Are you available for lunch this week? Lena sat very still. The storm was coming full circle. She could feel it in her bones. The Whitaker living room had been transformed. The furniture had been rearranged to face the large screen TV where Simone's presentation was playing. Soft instrumental music, golden hour lighting, and animated diagrams explaining gut health, stress response, and mitochondrial aging. Scattered. On the coffee table were branded pamphlets from Optimal UTM, Dr. Simone Cross's wellness platform. A team of assistants moved efficiently, placing blood pressure monitors, biofeedback rings, and DNA testing kits into labeled cases. Marla sat stiffly on the couch, her hands folded in her lap. Gerald stood by the window, arms crossed, silent and skeptical, but watching. Lena stood in the doorway, uninvited, unnoticed at first. She hadn't told them she was coming. Naomi had texted that morning, asking if she could still help with her journal. When Lena knocked, Naomi had opened the door and whispered, "Simone's here." So Lena stepped in and froze. Dr. Simone Cross turned just then, her sleek dark blazer, moving like liquid. Her eyes landed on Lena, a half-second too long. Simone smiled. "Lena," she said warmly, crossing the room. "You're here." The assistants paused. Lena gave a careful nod. "Didn't realize this was a public event." Gerald's voice cut in, edged with annoyance. "She's consulting with us. Thorough workup, real data, not just herbs and vibes." Simone shot him a tight, practiced smile. "We work with evidence-based approaches at Optimal UTM, though I'd say Lena's work was ahead of its time." That earned a confused look from Gerald. He blinked. "You two know each other?" "We were colleagues in grad school," Simone said, eyes still locked on Lena. "Brilliant mind, very holistic in her thinking." Lena felt her stomach twist. The compliment was smooth, untraceable, half truth, half performance. Naomi tugged on Lena's sleeve. "She's saying the same things you told me, just louder." Lena crouched beside her. "Yeah," she whispered. "She's good at that." Simone turned to the family. "Let's begin." The next hour was a surreal dance of déjà vu. Simone presented the Whitaker Family Plan, TM, a custom, multi-phase, integrative protocol built from genomic tendencies and lifestyle biofeedback. She spoke of processed sugar as inflammatory gasoline, recommended morning sunlight exposure, guided breathing, filtered water, turmeric, magnesium, and intermittent fasting. She referenced studies Lena had printed out 3 years ago. She quoted, data Lena had emailed them 6 months prior. And they listened. They nodded, took notes. When Gerald asked questions, Simone answered with charts. When Marla hesitated, Simone reassured with anecdotes of celebrity clients who had turned everything around. Lena sat at the edge of the room like a ghost, unseen by the family, but clearly noted by Simone. After the session, Simone approached Lena near the back hallway. "Didn't expect to see you here," Simone said, voice quiet now, the gloss of presentation stripped away. Lena tilted her head. "You're using my work." "I'm using the work," Simone said. "Ours. You always had the science, Lena. I had the lens." "You're charging them $50,000. And they're finally listening." Lena exhaled slowly. "You're not wrong, but you're not right either." Simone crossed her arms. "You want them to get better or not?" "I wanted them to believe in me before they had to pay for it." Simone's expression softened. "Lena, sometimes people don't trust the familiar. They need a stranger to tell them the truth they wouldn't hear from their own blood." Lena looked away. "You know what hurts most? It's not that you're good at this. It's that you know I was right, and you're using it like currency." Simone was silent for a beat. Then she said, "Meet me for lunch tomorrow. No assistants, no branding, just us." Lena stared at her for a moment, then gave a stiff nod. "Fine." That evening, Lena sat with Naomi at the kitchen table while the rest of the family reviewed Simone's plans in the den. Naomi unzipped her pencil case and opened her journal. "Can I show her this?" she asked. Lena looked at the page, a log of moods, energy levels, meals, and a small doodle of a brain lifting weights. Lena smiled. "You can show anyone. It's beautiful." Naomi hesitated. "She talks like you, but she doesn't look at me the way you do." "How do I look at you?" Lena asked. "Like I matter even when I'm not sick." Lena's throat tightened. "That's because you always matter, and you're listening early, before your body starts shouting." Naomi tilted her head. Is that what grown-ups forget? Lena nodded. Sometimes we wait until the body screams to believe it's hurting. Naomi closed her journal. I think I like your way better. From the living room, Eric's voice drifted in. So what's this test thing she's doing again? Spit tube? She said epigenetic markers, Gerald replied. Lena stood slowly. She walked in just as Simone's assistant handed Eric a DNA test kit. She saw the chart taped to the wall. The bullet point list of core recommendations. She froze. The top 5 items were verbatim from the protocol she had sent in her email. Same order, same terminology. Even the phrase, the body will whisper before it screams. Marla looked up and saw her daughter's face. Lena, I didn't realize she was using your stuff. She's presenting it like she invented it, Lena said, voice low but shaking. Eric stood awkwardly, test kit still in hand. Look, if it works, right? That's not the point, Lena said, the old tiredness creeping back in. Gerald bristled. She's delivering. She's professional. We trust her. Lena's eyes narrowed. Because she's not your daughter? No one answered. No one had to. She turned and left without another word. Back in her apartment, Lena sank into the couch. Her laptop lay open, cursor blinking in the archive she'd created. She highlighted the protocols Simone had echoed. Duplicated. Monetized. She scrolled, paused, and then opened a blank new file. Title, what they paid. For after ignoring me. The next morning, she walked into the cafe where she and Simone had agreed to meet. Simone was already there, no assistants, sipping black coffee. She looked more human here, less curated, more real. I was expecting you wouldn't come, Simone said. I wanted to look you in the eye, Lena replied, before I decide what to do next. Simone set down her cup. I want to offer you something, not out of guilt, out of recognition. Lena raised an eyebrow. I'm launching a new initiative, Simone continued. Science-forward, emotionally grounded. I want your research as the foundation, credited, paid, partnered. Lena stared at her, heart hammering. You're offering me a position under your brand? Simone nodded. Not under, beside. You've done the work. I just gave it a microphone. Lena looked out the window. Outside, the world moved in quiet, indifferent rhythm. Her family had finally heard her voice, but only when it came from someone else's mouth. Now that same someone was offering her the stage. The question wasn't just if she'd accept. It was what part of herself she'd leave behind if she did. The coffee between them had gone cold. Simone hadn't said another word since offering the partnership. She let the silence do its work, let it ferment, steep, evolve from awkward into potent. She knew how to wait, how to sell. Lena, on the other hand, stared at the offer not just as a career move, but as a memory. A living memory dressed up as a business proposal. She leaned back, arms crossed. So, what would this partnership actually look like? Simone met her eyes. You'd be my co-director of research and development. We'd bring your protocols in-house, refine the language, format it for publication and client access. You'd have equal say in what we roll out. Full visibility, attribution. Lena snorted. Attribution? Yes, Simone said. Your name, your bylines. This time people will know where it came from. This time? Simone didn't flinch. I owe you. We both know that. What you offered our cohort at Hopkins. Half. My core concepts were born from your obsession with integrative systems. I just knew how to make it palatable. You mean profitable? Lena replied. Simone shrugged. Both. Lena looked away, through the cafe's rain-specked windows. Her reflection swam in the glass, indistinct but present. A woman who had worked for years in the margins, in the shadows. the daughter who couldn't reach her parents, the sister whose warnings were drowned out by mockery, the coach whose research was dismissed until it came from someone else. And now, this. I watched my family eat up your presentation like it was gospel, Lena said quietly. The same advice. I gave them for free, over and over. You delivered it with a price tag and they finally listened. Simone stirred her coffee. And you want to punish them for that? Lena shook her head. I want them to feel what it's like to trust me, not just tolerate me. Simone's voice softened. Lena, this isn't about them. This is about your voice finally being heard. But through your mouth. Simone tilted her head. Then take the mic. The offer hung there, tempting. Lena felt something twist deep in her gut, not excitement, not validation, fear, because this wasn't just a job. It was a chance to be seen. But at what cost? Later that day, Lena met Trevor at his office. The waiting room was quiet, and she collapsed onto the old leather couch like she'd run a marathon. She offered me a co-directorship, Lena said, without preamble. Full credit, full control. She wants my work. Trevor didn't look surprised. And how do you feel about that? Like I'm standing outside my own house, watching someone else decorate the living room. Trevor leaned forward. So what's stopping you? I don't know if I want to join the house or burn it down. Trevor chuckled. You want to win, that's all. But you're not sure what winning looks like. Lena rubbed her temples. If I say yes, I become part of her empire. But if I say no, my family still doesn't believe in me. They believe in her. Do I take the recognition, finally, or walk away and stay unseen? Trevor looked at her for a long time. I think, he said slowly, you're asking the wrong question. It's not about being seen anymore. It's about who you want to be seen by. That landed hard. Lena let the silence settle before she spoke again. I'm not sure I can forgive them, she said. Trevor nodded. Then don't. Yet. Just decide if you're done trying, or if this is the moment. You stop proving yourself and just start building what's yours. That night, Lena went for a walk. The wind was crisp, the moon low and pale. Streetlights buzzed as she passed under them. Her phone buzzed. A text from Naomi. Guess what? I taught Grandma how to do belly breathing. She says her knees felt warm for the first time in weeks. I told her it's because she's finally listening. Lena stopped walking. She stared at the message. And something cracked. Not painfully, not dramatically, but like a seed splitting underground. The next morning, Lena called Simone. I'm not interested in being part of your brand, she said. Simone's voice was unreadable. Is that final? But, Lena continued, I'm willing to collaborate, on a limited basis. Authorship on published work. My name stays attached to everything I contribute. We keep our research joint, but our voice is distinct. Simone was quiet for a beat. You want dual visibility? No, Lena said. I want my own. A pause. Then, smart, Simone said. Harder to market, but authentic. I can live with that, Lena replied. Simone exhaled into the line. All right, we'll make it work. We'll draft an agreement. And just like that, Lena claimed her terms. By the end of the week, the Whitakers received an unexpected email. Subject line, the plan you ignored and paid for anyway. Inside was a link. A digital wellness library with Lena's name in the footer. Each file was time-stamped, dated, formatted into an elegant archive. At the bottom of the email, a simple line. Everything I gave you then is still true now. Use it or don't. But you'll always know where it came from. That Sunday, during brunch, Lena returned to the Whitaker home. She hadn't planned to speak. But when Gerald made a comment about Simone's cutting-edge approach, Lena pushed her plate aside. You know, every one of Simone's top 5 recommendations came directly from me, she said. You know the protocol she gave you was the same one I emailed you months ago, word for word. Marla opened her mouth to respond, but Lena held up a hand. I'm not here to fight. I'm here to say that I'm done asking to be believed. I know my worth. If you need help going forward, I'll consider it. But I won't beg. And I won't be your backup plan. Eric glanced at Naomi, then at the floor. Gerald looked like he'd swallowed something sour, but it was Naomi who spoke. About time, she said. And Lena laughed, not bitterly, but freely. For the first time in years, she wasn't pleading for respect. She was offering it to herself. The tension in the Whitaker dining room was thick enough to slice. It lingered in the silence that followed Lena's declaration, settling into the corners of the house like unwelcome smoke. The Sunday brunch table, once cluttered with scrambled eggs, bacon, and fruit trays, was now frozen mid-meal. Coffee cooled in untouched mugs. Forks rested idle beside wilted greens. Lena sat upright, not in anger, but in clarity. The weight of her words still echoed off the chandelier. Across from her, Gerald blinked slowly, as if recalibrating the room through a lens he'd never used before. You're saying, he began, voice clipped, that Simone Cross, the woman we paid a fortune for, is using your material? Lena nodded once. Correct. He frowned. Then why didn't she say so? She did. To me, privately. Privately, Gerald muttered, like the word itself was dishonest. Marla, lips parted as if about to speak, closed them again. Lena took a breath. She knows where the ideas came from, but that's not what this is about. This is about the fact that you knew I was offering help, and you dismissed it. Over and over. Eric leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. No offense, but Simone presents it better. Lena turned to him. Because she's not your sister. He didn't answer. You never wanted a solution, she said. You wanted control. And when I offered knowledge, you saw it as judgment. Marla winced. Lena, she said softly. No, Lena interrupted. Let's stop pretending. You all wanted me to shut up, smile. Be the weird daughter with her herbal teas and research folders who meant well, but didn't really know what she was talking about. Marla's hands trembled around her napkin. That's not true. You told Naomi I was overreacting when I warned you about your inflammation. I didn't want to scare her. You didn't want to admit you were scared yourself, Lena. Shot back. A heavy silence fell. Eric shifted in his seat, visibly uncomfortable. Gerald finally spoke. You're making this personal when it was professional. Lena stood, eyes flashing. It was always personal. I'm your daughter, and I've spent a decade trying to save your lives with the knowledge I earned, and every time I tried, you made me feel like I was a stranger in my own family. Gerald looked down. He said nothing. Eric, surprisingly, laughed once, short, bitter. You always wanted us to grovel, didn't you? Admit you were right? No, Lena said, voice suddenly quiet. I just wanted to matter. That silenced him. For a long moment, no one spoke. And then, unexpectedly, Naomi pushed back her chair and stood. I think Aunt Lena should do all our plans from now on, she said plainly. Everyone turned to her. I asked her for help before. She gave it. No money, no PowerPoint, just help. Gerald looked stricken. Naomi, no, Grandpa. You all ignored her because she didn't make you pay for it. And now that someone else is charging a ton for the same stuff, suddenly it's real. Her voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. Eric stared at his daughter like he was seeing her for the first time. Lena blinked, throat tight. Naomi, I'm not saying Simone's bad, Naomi continued. She's just not better. You just don't like when Aunt Lena says things you're not ready to hear. Silence again. Then Marla began to cry. Not the polite, tissue-dabbed tears she was used to showing at funerals or charity luncheons, but soft, shaking sobs that made her shoulders curl inward. I didn't know how to defend you, she said between breaths. Gerald would roll his eyes and Eric would laugh, and I didn't want to fight. I didn't want to break the family. You broke? Me instead, Lena whispered. I know, Marla choked. I know I did. Lena didn't rush to forgive her. She sat down slowly, feeling the tremble in her hands as her mother wept. Her niece stood tall, and her father stared at the floor like it might offer absolution. Eric stood abruptly, chair scraping backward. He paced once, twice, then slammed a hand against the edge of the counter. You think this is easy for me? He snapped. Being the one with the heart scare, being the guy whose 12-year-old is more emotionally mature than he is? I don't want to need help. You'd rather die than be vulnerable, Lena said. Maybe, he shouted. The room froze. Eric's shoulders sagged. His voice dropped. Maybe that's all I've known. I watched Dad hold everything. I watched Mom fold herself in half, trying not to make waves. And then there's you, walking around like truth's a gift you get to hand out. But it's heavy. It hurts. Lena's expression softened, not pity, but recognition. I know, she said, but we're not kids anymore. We don't get to pretend pain isn't real. We don't get to throw away people who try to help us because we're scared of feeling small. Eric didn't answer. He walked out the back door and didn't come back for the rest of the night. Marla pulled Lena aside as Naomi cleaned up the plates. I read your plan, she said. The one you emailed. Lena waited. I started the breathing exercises this week. My knees really did feel different. Lena smiled faintly. Sometimes all it takes is a little oxygen. I want to learn, Marla said. For real this time. But I want to learn from you. Lena's throat tightened. Then I'll start you slow. They hugged. Awkward. And late, but real. That night, Lena sat in her apartment, staring at her inbox. There was a message from Simone. Subject: New launch strategy. Partner approval required. Lena didn't open it yet. Instead, she opened a blank email and began writing to Eric. Hey, I know things got messy today. If you ever want to talk about what's underneath all of this, truly, I'll be here. Not to fix you, just to listen. Maybe that's where healing begins. She paused, then hit send. For the first time in years, Lena wasn't trying to be right. She was just trying to be whole. The knock on Lena's apartment door came late. Not suspiciously so, just late enough to be unexpected. She paused mid-chop, the knife resting against a vibrant orange sweet potato. From the other side of the door came the faint shuffle of feet and the unmistakable weight of hesitation. She dried her hands, took a breath, and opened it. Eric stood. There! Hoodie zipped up to his chin, a baseball cap tugged low. Didn't know if you'd answer, he said, eyes down. I debated, Lena replied. They stood in silence. Then Lena stepped aside. Eric entered without a word and took the armchair in the corner, the same one he used to call the therapist's throne when they were kids. Lena returned to the kitchen, the rhythm of her cooking slowing, her thoughts sharpening. He cleared, his throat. You meant that email? Lena turned off the burner. I don't write things I don't mean. Eric exhaled, long and shaky. Then I guess I'm here to not fix anything, but start something. She didn't respond. Not yet. She let the silence stretch until it felt honest, not tense. I read the plan you sent me, he said. The one I never opened. It's good. Better than Simone's if I'm honest. Feels like someone actually gave a damn. I did, Lena said quietly. I know, Eric replied. I just didn't want it from you. She turned slowly. Why? Eric didn't answer immediately. He was digging at a loose thread on his cuff, the way he used to when he was 5 and trying to avoid admitting he broke something. Because, he finally said, if you were right, that meant I was wrong. About everything. About you. About me. And I couldn't face that. Lena softened, but not completely. So you mocked me. He nodded, shame pressing his shoulders down. Every joke, every eye roll, it was easier than saying, I'm scared. Scared of being weak. Scared that you were the only one in the family who saw what was happening and actually tried to stop it. He looked up, his eyes rimmed with exhaustion. I nearly died, Lena. And all I could think about in that ER was how I made fun of you for saying exactly what Simone ended up charging us to hear. I can't undo it. But I'm sorry. I mean it. Lena sat across from him, letting the apology land. She didn't reach for it. She let it sit in the space between them like a third presence, neither embraced nor rejected. You know, she said, when we were kids, you used to stand in front of me when the neighbor boys teased me. You didn't say much. You just stood there. I thought that version of you was gone. Eric gave a dry laugh. He's still in here, just buried under a lot of protein shakes and poor decisions. They both smiled. Then Lena's voice softened. I appreciate your apology, but I need you to know, I'm not here to rescue you. If you want help now, it has to be because you're ready, not because I guilted you into it. I am, he said. For real this time. But I want it from you, not Simone, not a TED Talk, just you. Lena nodded slowly. Then we start small. They began with basics. Over the next few days, Lena gave Eric an intake form. Not fancy, just questions. Sleep, hydration, meal routines, stress triggers. He filled it out like homework. He even sent a photo of his new green smoothie, which Lena kindly informed him wasn't really green if it was 80% vanilla whey and a single baby spinach leaf. Naomi, delighted, created a scoreboard. Team Uncle Eric versus Team Liver. Every time he met a daily goal, she added a gold star. Positive reinforcement, she told him with great seriousness. Psychology 101. Eric looked over at Lena. She's more like you every day. Scary, isn't it? Lena quipped. Marla called during one of their planning sessions. Your father wants to know if there's a book you recommend about reversing hypertension naturally, she said. He's curious. Lena paused. Sure, I'll email you a list. And Lena? Yeah? Thank you for not giving up on us. I did give up, Lena said, but only for a while. The next week, Lena received a package at her office, a sleek binder embossed with her name in gold foil. Inside were formatted copies of her wellness protocols, professionally typeset and branded with both her and Simone's names. Science and Story, the Human Body's Quiet Warnings. A note was tucked inside. You asked for distinction. You got it. First print run in 2 weeks. Partner review session scheduled for Thursday. Thank you for your integrity. Aussie Lena set the binder down, fingertips resting on the cover. She didn't feel triumphant. She felt grounded. That night, Naomi handed her a page from her journal. A drawing of Lena holding a glowing heart, surrounded by people with confused expressions, slowly turning toward her light. I called it Truthbringer, Naomi said. Lena blinked hard. You really think I'm that? Naomi shrugged. I think you've always been that. They just didn't know how to look. The next morning, Eric texted her. Made it 3 days without caffeine. Star me. Lena laughed. Star awarded. You're officially at level 2 liver wizard. Can I get a badge? If you survive turmeric tea, yes. Later that day, She sat alone in her apartment and opened her voice memo app. Day 1, she began. Today I accepted an apology I thought I'd never hear. And it didn't fix everything, but it shifted something. The ground's a little less shaky. My voice a little clearer. I think healing isn't about being right. It's about being ready to begin again. She saved the recording and titled it, The Cost of Being Right Too Soon, Notes from the Front Lines of Family. The scent of cinnamon, chamomile, and eucalyptus hung in the air, light but grounding, as Lena stepped into the conference hall of the Delaware Wellness and Longevity Expo. Rows of booths flanked the walls, kombucha vendors, yoga studios, biofeedback startups. But at the center, a sleek stage shimmered under soft amber lighting. Simone's team had set it up like a magazine. Spread. Glass pillars displayed mock-ups of her new product line. A massive screen behind the podium pulsed with a subtle glow, bearing the logo, Science and Story, TM, Wellness Backed by Evidence, Told with Empathy. And beneath that, 2 names, side by side. Dr. Simone Cross and Lena Whitaker, RCN. For a brief moment, Lena just stared. The symmetry of it, the validation, not shouted, but engraved. Her name, her research, her identity, not buried in footnotes or staff bios, but presented as co-equal. A weight shifted in her chest, part disbelief, part quiet triumph. She moved through the crowd slowly, absorbing it. Gerald and Marla stood near the front, dressed conservatively, posture tight but proud. Marla clutched a branded tote bag with Lena's face on a flyer peeking out. Gerald, less obviously pleased, kept glancing at the program like it might rearrange itself under scrutiny. Naomi sat between them, feet swinging, wearing a lanyard that said, Future Wellness Leader. Trevor found Lena just as she reached the green room. He grinned. They spelled your name right. That's got to count for something. Lena smirked. Took a decade, but here we are. Stage fright? Only mild existential dread. Trevor touched her shoulder. You've already won. This is just the world catching up. The panel began with a welcome address by Simone, polished, magnetic, intentional. She introduced the new collaborative project with grace and generosity, framing it as a merging of science and soul. And then, to a crowd of over 400 attendees, she said, Much of this initiative wouldn't exist without the insight and persistence of someone who has long been a quiet force in the wellness field. Someone who saw the body not just as a machine to fix, but as a story to interpret. She turned toward the wings of the stage. Please welcome Lena Whitaker. Applause. Not polite, not obligatory, warm, sustained. Lena stepped into the light. The microphone was cool in her hand, the stage warm underfoot. She stood still for a breath, then another. I used to think the hardest part of helping people, she began, was getting the science right. The biochemistry, the protocols, the supplements. But I was wrong. She looked toward her parents, then at Naomi. The hardest part was getting them to listen, especially when you love them. The crowd stilled. The silence was reverent. For years, I offered what I knew, quietly, sometimes too quietly, and it was ignored, dismissed, laughed at. And then someone else said the same words, with better lighting and a 6-figure contract, and suddenly it was gospel. A ripple of uncomfortable laughter moved through the crowd. I'm not bitter, not anymore, because I realized something. Being heard isn't the same as being understood, and sometimes it takes a mirror, not a microphone, for people to really see. She paused, her voice steady. This platform isn't about ego. It's about bringing truth to people who are finally ready to hear it. And for those still resisting, I see you. I was one of you. Lena's eyes met her father's. This work is not about who gets credit. It's about who gets better. She stepped back. The crowd rose. A standing ovation. Afterward, Simone clapped her on the back backstage. You landed it. Lena smiled. Thanks for the mic. You earned it, Simone said. I just made the room a little quieter so they could hear you. In the atrium, Gerald approached slowly. He looked as though he'd rehearsed something but abandoned the script. He extended his hand. Lena took it. I'm proud of you, he said gruffly. That wasn't easy to hear, but it was true. She nodded. Thank you for saying that. He looked at her a long moment, then quietly. I downloaded that book you recommended, the one about inflammation, highlighted some things. Her heart tightened. Yeah? Yeah. Marla hugged her tightly next. I cried, she whispered. During your speech. Not because it hurt, but because I think I finally understood how long I've been quiet for the wrong reasons. Lena hugged her back. It's okay, we're learning. Naomi bounded up, waving a signed flyer. I got people to sign your brochure like it's a yearbook. Lena grinned. Did you sign it? Front and center, Naomi beamed. You're gonna want that one later. Outside the expo center, as the sun dipped low, Trevor stood beside Lena, sipping from a complimentary wellness smoothie that he declared tasted like minty. Regret. Now what? He asked. Lena looked at the horizon. Now I build, but on my terms. No more whispers? No more waiting to be invited in, she said. From now on, I make the table. He nodded. Good. And I want a seat at that table, preferably near the snacks. They laughed. Behind them, a group of attendees passed, one whispering to another. That's her, Lena Whitaker, the one who talked about stories in the body. And Lena, for the first time, let herself smile, not with irony or weariness, but with the peace of someone finally seen, finally heard. The kitchen counter in Lena's apartment had become a canvas of color. Markers, scrap paper, smoothie-stained notebooks, and stickers shaped like fruits in yoga poses. Naomi sat perched on a stool, elbow deep in colored pens, while Lena stirred a pot of herbal broth behind her. They were building something. Not a protocol, not a plan. A wellness journal, designed by a 12-year-old, guided by a woman who once thought she'd never be anyone's mentor. Okay, Naomi said, chewing her lip thoughtfully. What's a good name? Like, not boring science stuff. Something fun but real. Lena leaned over the island, tapping her chin. How about Body Talk, a journal for smart girls who listen to themselves? Naomi's face lit up. That's so good. Can we put that in purple glitter letters? Lena grinned. Obviously. This was healing. Not loud or showy, just consistent. Present. A slow rebuilding from roots instead of branches. Back at the Whitaker home, things were changing. Not radically, not quickly, but meaningfully. Marla had started attending a local yoga class every Tuesday morning. She told no one at first, worried about judgment. Now she texted Lena a selfie from her yoga mat each week, smudged eyeliner, tangled hair, radiant smile. Forgot I could feel like this, one caption read. Gerald, meanwhile, had developed an unlikely fondness for his Oura ring. He tracked his sleep obsessively and, to Lena's great amusement, began leaving the dinner table early to maintain his circadian rhythm. He didn't always mention Lena's name when crediting the changes, but he no longer interrupted. When Marla did. And Eric? Eric had gone from protein bars and triple-shot espresso to what he called his Uncle Smoothies. Kale, almond butter, and a slightly obnoxious dose of cinnamon. One morning, he sent Lena a photo of his new fridge. Layout, color-coded, full of produce. Caption, Meet your legacy. I call it the fridge formerly known as junk. But it wasn't just about food. It was about rhythm, routine, reflection. Gerald started keeping a nightly log of how he felt. Not his blood pressure, not his sleep hours, just how he felt. Sometimes the entry was one line, sometimes 2 paragraphs. One night, he wrote, "Today I listened to my daughter talk on a podcast. I didn't understand every word, but I understood every emotion. I didn't know it mattered this much to her. I should have." Lena read it weeks later, when Marla handed her his notebook quietly, like a sacred object. She didn't cry. She just closed the cover and held it close to her chest. In the afternoons, Lena and Naomi met in parks or cafes to test journal layouts. Naomi asked endless questions about stress, about hormones, about food and sleep and shame and resilience. They created a section called Mood Clouds and another called Sleep Adventures. Lena watched her niece's language reshape wellness into something playful and inviting, not prescriptive, empowered. "You know," Lena said one afternoon, "you're already a better communicator than I was at your age." Naomi smirked. "That's because I had a better teacher." Lena blinked. "You mean me?" Naomi nodded. "And you didn't even make me pay 50 grand. They both burst out laughing. At a family dinner one Sunday, Lena brought the prototype journal. Gerald raised an eyebrow when she handed it to him. "For Naomi?" he asked. "For a lot of Naomis," she said. He flipped through it slowly. His fingers lingered on a page titled, "When the Body Talks, Don't Wait Until It Screams." He cleared his throat. Smart title. Lena sipped her tea. "Took me a few years to earn it." He didn't reply, but he closed the book carefully and set it beside his plate like something worth protecting. Later that night, Lena stood outside on the patio, watching fireflies dance above the grass. The air was still, heavy with June warmth. Marla stepped out beside her, hands in her cardigan pockets. "They're changing," she said softly. "They are. Because of you." Lena looked at the stars. "Because of them. I just stopped trying to fix it and started living like the kind of example I needed." Marla nodded, eyes glassy. "Do you ever wonder if things could have been different if we'd listened sooner?" Lena took a long breath. "All the time. But we don't get to rewrite the beginning, only the chapters that come next." A beat passed. Then Marla whispered, "I hope you'll stay in ours." Lena turned to her. "That's up to you." And it was. The next morning, Naomi brought her a new page she'd drawn, a tree with deep roots. At the base, a figure in a lab coat kneeling in the soil, planting seeds. Above her, branches stretched wide, each leaf labeled joy, energy, breath, forgiveness, truth. "This one's called the Quiet Start," Naomi explained. Lena traced the figure's outline. "It looks like me." Naomi beamed. "It is you." That night, alone in her apartment, Lena stared at the journal prototype. She thought about everything that had been taken from her, everything she had reclaimed, and everything she had rebuilt. Not by shouting louder, but by refusing to. Stay small. She opened her laptop and typed. "The hardest part of being ahead of your time is learning to live inside the waiting. But when the echo finally comes back to you, carrying their voices instead of silence, you realize you weren't shouting. Into a void. You were planting." She saved the file, named it Echoes, Volume 1. The studio was quiet except for the soft hum of the recording equipment. Walls lined with soundproofing panels, a single mic on a black stand, and a warm ring light cast a glow across Lena's face as she sat alone, headphones gently cupping her ears. Across the glass, the podcast producer gave her a thumbs up. They were live. "Welcome back to Realigned," the host said, her voice smooth and familiar. "The podcast where we talk about healing, not just the body, but the beliefs that keep us from it. Today, I'm joined by someone whose story you may not know, but whose work has touched more lives than she probably realizes. nutritionist, wellness coach, and co-author of Science and Story, Lena Whitaker. Lena, thanks for being here. Lena smiled, a calm confidence in her voice. Thanks for having me. So, let's start simple. What's the biggest misconception people have about what you do? Lena paused for only a breath. That it's just about food, or supplements. That wellness starts in a bottle or a blender. The truth is, most of our health issues don't begin in the gut. They begin in the silence. Silence? The host echoed. Yes, Lena said. The silence of being dismissed, of not being heard, of knowing something important and having no one listen until it's too late. The host leaned forward. You're speaking from experience, aren't you? Lena looked down briefly, then met the mic again. Yes. For years, I watched people I love ignore advice I gave them freely. They didn't believe it until someone with a bigger platform and a higher price tag repackaged it. And by then, it had already cost them too much. Not just money, time, trust, health. There was a beat of silence, this time intentional, respectful. And how did you keep going through that? The host asked. How did you not give up? I did, Lena said, her voice steady. A few times. But eventually, I realized something important. You don't need everyone to believe in you. You just need to stop waiting for permission to act on your own belief. And once I stopped trying to prove myself, everything started to shift. The host's voice softened. That's powerful. Lena smiled, but it didn't come from pride. It came from peace. Back in the Whitaker home, the living room was unusually still. Gerald sat upright in his chair, Marla beside him on the couch, a tablet resting on a stand in front of them as Lena's voice poured into the room. Eric stood leaning against the doorway, arms crossed, eyes closed, listening. Naomi was curled on the floor, sketching while she listened, earphones draped around her neck. When Lena began talking about silence, Gerald blinked quickly. I didn't hear her, he said quietly. Marla reached for his hand. She tried, she replied. We weren't ready, but she didn't stop. At the studio, the interview wrapped up. Before we let you go, the host said, if there's one thing you could say to your younger self, the version of you before the recognition, before the platform, what would it be? Lena exhaled. I'd tell her she was already enough, that knowing the truth doesn't always mean you'll be thanked for it, and that planting seeds is hard when all you hear is silence, but someday, those roots will grow. And when they do, the echo comes back in voices you never expected. The host smiled. That's beautiful. Lena nodded. It's true. She stepped out into the early evening sun after the recording, blinking against the gold-washed light. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, a message from Eric. Listen to the podcast. You made me cry, jerk. Another seconds later. Also, I bought those supplements you recommended. Trying not to die now. Thought you should know. Then, Naomi. You sounded like a hero. Also, I made a sticker that says, my aunt is smarter than your doctor. Want one? Lena laughed. A third message came from her mother, surprisingly brief. You were brave. I'm proud. Then, finally, from Gerald. I heard you this time. Truly. Thank you. Lena read each message slowly, then closed her phone, not to shut them out, but to hold the quiet for herself, not the empty kind, not the ache of being ignored. This silence was full. She returned home and found a package waiting on her doorstep. Inside, a small canvas from Naomi. The painting showed Lena as a tree, her arms reaching up into the sky like branches, her feet grounded in soil teeming with roots. Around her grew others, smaller, vibrant trees, some leaning toward hers, some standing on their own. At the bottom, in careful lettering, You planted, now we grow. Lena didn't cry. Not at first. She hung the painting beside her desk. She stared at it for a long time, hand resting against her heart. Then she whispered aloud, maybe to herself, maybe to the version of her that had once been so tired. I'm not in the shadows anymore. That night, she lit a candle. No diffuser, no protocol. Just one small flame in a quiet room. And she wrote, "This is not a story of revenge. This is not a story of, I told you so. It's a story of what happens when you love people more than your ego, when you choose the long, hard road of truth, knowing it may leave you lonely for years. It's a story of reclaiming your name, your voice, your worth, of planting in silence and blooming in echoes. It's mine." Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.